Now welcome to another edition of News from Naboo with Thor's Lightning Takes. And let's get right to the news.
We're going to kick this off with Rosario Dawson just kind of hinted that a Season 2 of Ahsoka decision could be made soon. With all the strikes and the holidays going on, she kind of was doing this interview with the Dagobah Dispatch, Entertainment Weekly's Star Wars podcast, and mentioned that with those holidays now over and the strike over, they're kind of at a point where we're going to kind of circle back, end of the year kind of thing, new year kind of thing. And they're supposed to be having a dinner soon with the whole cast. So this could be turn into a kind of a discussion. Maybe it's being read into too much. But this very well could be the point now where we start hearing, is something going to happen? Is Season 2 going to happen? Because they got to tell us soon, right?
Well, I mean, they don't have to tell us soon, but I can't see how a dinner with the cast would have anything to do with a decision.
Well,
I'm sure they're
all signed. It might not have to do it with a decision, but it might be something that releases to
Where
them
they tell
their
them,
decision.
yeah.
Maybe giving them first shot at it.
Yeah, I think you kind of maybe made it sound like that they were like going to discuss whether or not they were going to do it. I'm sure they're all contractually obligated. Probably got,
signed on for X many whatevers. No, I could see a dinner such as this being a nice way to announce to the cast, hey,
Season 2
great job, everyone. You better get fired up because here we go, Season 2.
Well, the numbers we talked about the other day seem to imply it did quite well for Disney Plus. It was like in the top 5 of new show, or number 4, I think, or something.
Right. These numbers are, don't come explicitly from Disney. I mean, these are gathered by different analytics groups, Samba, Parrot. They all kind of release numbers and viewing statistics, and then lists get compiled. And it's not like Disney goes, see, we had the most because we said we did.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they can say it was one of the most on their streaming platform, but compared to the other ones, you have no. Yeah.
But I kind of wanted to segue talking about this possibility for the decision of Season 2 coming out soon.
Possibility of the decision.
Possibility of the decision. I don't want to be, too hopeful, but I want to know where the story is going. That cliffhanger ending, it ruins everything, because it's...
I don't know. Like I said before, I don't know that I'm, all that excited to see where it goes next, other than Baylan.
Well, that's the most exciting part, yes.
Yeah, not even necessarily because of Mortis and everything, but because I just like Baylan.
All Filoni has to do is go Disney. Without Season 2 of Ahsoka, I cannot make my movie, and it'll get made.
Then they'll be like, then you don't make your movie.
I don't know.
Maybe
they're tired of unfulfilled promises. I mean, I sure am.
Well, yeah, I'm certainly... I mean, how many times have we had, movie announcements and then they don't come to fruition? So it's gotten to the point where, it's almost like a meme. Oh, yeah, I'll believe it when I see it.
I kind of wanted to use the talking about this Season 2 stuff as a segue to talk about something else I wanted to talk about in regards to Ahsoka. That being her character and the inconsistencies I think exist within her story.
Okay.
Just literally her character. Only looking at her character.
Okay.
So we first see her in Mandalorian. She's kind of reminds me a lot of Clone Wars Rebels Ahsoka, right? She's playful, she's jovial at times, she smiles, but she's an adult, she's more serious. She's very Rebels Ahsoka, right?
Yeah, she feels more... Well, I think Rebels did a pretty good job of feeling like a natural progression from Clone Wars. You would expect her to be, after nearly 20 years, to be more grown up, a little more
right, with the
mature,
war
and
continuing.
Yeah, she's been through a lot.
The Jedi Order falling and...
She was a little more stoic there than maybe I would have expected, but again, after all she's seen.
And comparing her to when we see her in Mandalorian Season 2, how did you feel?
I think she is Rebels, like in Mando Season 2. She also has a little bit more of a playful spirit, right? She, she gives a few... And same with Book of Boba Fett as well with Luke. There's,
very playful, jovial kind of...
Yeah.
She seems in a good, happy-ish place.
She actually does. She seems like she's pretty content with things. Like she's, how she tells Luke, much like your father. It feels like everything she's gone through has been dealt with internally and she's moved on. No doubt Luke talked about what happens with Anakin at the end. It feels like she's, moved on and is doing her own things.
Now let's move into how do you think that compares to how she started out in Ahsoka?
She starts out in Ahsoka broken, it feels like.
Right?
And
this is part of my issue.
Yeah, and just kind of out of the blue.
All of a sudden, her character is this deep and sad and...
brooding.
I failed on my apprentice,
stoic,
and I haven't dealt with my guilt with Anakin, and I'm so sad. And it's not until after that she turns back into the Ahsoka we met in Mandalorian and revisited in Book of Boba Fett.
Even though we know that's before.
Yes. This is my problem.
I think the problem is Dave Filoni wanted to tell this story about Ahsoka, and he already had these other bits and pieces, which maybe you weren't supposed to really read too much into about her kind of attitude that you see in it. I mean, the whole Ahsoka the White thing, when we see her at the end of Rebels, like, we think that's, like,
we thought she already got there.
Well, no, not even that, but we think that, like, something profound has happened, right? I don't know why. I don't know if it's just because so many people kind of related to Gandalf and Gandalf the White, and she's got the staff, and she kind of stands there, and we're like, oh, she's changed. Something is different with her now.
Well, obviously we thought that. I mean, the last time we saw her was she left the world between worlds and then went into who knows what in Rebels.
Well, yeah, and Dave does show us in the Ahsoka series that something kind of profound happens to her, but he kind of backtracks and he wants to show that and he wants to imply that didn't happen yet, which I think is part of why this feels very inconsistent.
Because it backpedals.
Because it backpedals. It's because he's like, oh, I want to show this kind of full story now, and I've already implied this part of the story that I want to have has already happened with her being Ahsoka. Because there's no doubt in my mind that it's the same scene from Rebels as it is in the Ahsoka series. I know some people want, no, it's a little... No, it's the same scene.
It is kind of shot for shot.
He's just, I mean, especially when you take into consideration some of his comments about continuity, that he's, it's flexible. Hey, this is all...
Continuity is not flexible.
Well, I'm saying these are his comments, certainly not mine. But he's said before, these are all stories, what we heard Sam Witwer say about how Dave told him, no, it doesn't have to be. It's almost good that it's not sometimes. So I think he backtracked, and it made it feel kind of weird because we had already seen Ahsoka beyond that.
What made me the most angry, that I've kind of now realized, when she talked to Luke in Book of Boba Fett, she was very, she'd come to terms with him, and she talked to him about his father, and...
Well, that's what I'm saying, yeah.
According to Ahsoka, she hadn't come to terms with Anakin yet. She was struggling on this very deeply, worried she was going to turn into him, worried about the darkness he may have passed to her. Yet you see her in Book of Boba Fett, she seems like she's totally... Okay,
yeah,
she's come to terms with everything that happened with Anakin. This inconsistency is maddening.
Yeah, because it feels like it would make a hell of a lot more sense if, Book of Boba Fett was after the Ahsoka series.
It makes 100% more sense
Same with
if that
Mandalorian.
one scene, at least, takes place after.
We also have this very strange inconsistency of her, you can't train Grogu. He's got way too many attachments. And I've seen what happens with attachments. And then it's like, I'm going to train Sabine despite her attachments?
Yeah, they've made Ahsoka's character very inconsistent. And I feel like this is because Disney maybe didn't have a plan, didn't have a roadmap when they decided, it'd be really cool, let's throw Ahsoka into The Mandalorian. It'd be awesome! They put her in there, and then down the road they're like, you know what? Let's do a series with Ahsoka because people seem to like her.
People do like her.
People do like her.
I mean, let's make no mistake. I'm not saying I hate Ahsoka.
She's actually very popular, yes.
Yeah, she's within the core fandom, obviously. She's not really extremely well known beyond that. We've had our joke before about talking about people asking us who are not huge fans, what's in Ahsoka. But in the core fandom, she's loved by many. Which
is why this makes no sense that he would, deconstruct his character after showing her one way, I think it's, to then flip the coin and go, no, she's actually really broken.
I think you kind of hit the nail on the head where you said that eventually they came to him and were like, what about an Ahsoka series? How would you feel about doing that after he had already kind of showed her in a few other places under the assumption maybe that never happens? So we kind of threw those things into those other shows to show, oh, look, she's moved on, she's better now, but now he's like, now I get the chance to show how she got better.
Right.
And so it kind of backtracks and makes it feel all disconjointed.
Which they should have just put something in there to say that, this happened at a certain time with this, instead of just going, no, we just keep pressing forward and we're going to tell you the story in a weird way. I don't particularly care for that. I think that's part of my problem going into Ahsoka, is we saw how she was doing in Mandalorian, in Book of Boba Fett. We saw, hey, look, she seems like herself, everything seems fine. You move into her series and she's like, no, I'm broken.
Yeah. And then she gets better within it again, and you're like, well, didn't we just see you 2 weeks before the series you were doing pretty good?
She was doing pretty good. She seemed fantastic. She visited with Luke. She's like, hey, I'd stay, but I got some stuff to do. I have to be emo Ahsoka.
Well, I mean, that's also interesting that in that series, we have no idea why she's there. This is another frustrating part of her story. Why did she go see Luke? Was it just hey, I'm going to visit him?
I mean, she hadn't come to terms with Luke's father yet, so it is...
Well, sure. Well, if that's the case, yeah. But again, it doesn't seem to be implied that she is during the Book of Boba Fett. We also know that she's on the hunt for the map to find Morgan Elsbeth, which leads to Thrawn and all these things. Or
could
not
we
to Morgan
assume
Elsbeth,
that
the map to
maybe
Thrawn.
she went there to see if Luke had any knowledge? I mean, if she knew anything or heard anything about Luke exploring Jedi temples and Jedi ruins, maybe she thought I can go and ask him about.
Well,
if
yeah,
he knows what
I
this
think we
is.
can assume that, but I mean, it just feels like it's such a weird thing that she's just there, and you get no hint as to
No
why.
context. She's there because cameo.
Yeah, it does feel like it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because,
Just like Mando showed up because of cameo.
Yep. Because it's not
This
all
is
about
the fault of not having a strong plan going into things.
yeah, just a strong story. It's not all about the story. It's about cameo. It's all about, oh, this would be cool to see this, and fans are
Shock and
gonna
awe.
like it. Where I think most fans would rather just have a solid story, not cameo, because cool character.
And it just frustrates me because I really want to enjoy the Disney Star Wars era. I want to.
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
not, but I want to.
I really wanted to love the Ahsoka series so much for that I kind of feel like going back and looking how I talked about it, especially early on, I feel like almost like an apologist at this point. Because I was trying, you know what? I'm like, this is going to be good. This is going to be good. First few episodes were okay. Third episode was, what it is. The fourth episode, fifth episode, I'm like, yeah, this is good. This is good. And then I'm like, it's not really that good, is it?
Yeah, it's the desire to want it rather than it actually being.
Yeah, I really wanted it to be good. And then I think there was this realization point with me where I'm like, no, again, it wasn't.
That's why Andor is considered the best and worst of Star Wars. The best because it's really good. The worst because it raised the bar so high. The other series,
so good, yeah.
which would be fine, which would be great. We'd probably be enjoying them a lot more if Andor didn't raise that bar.
I don't know about enjoying them more. Maybe slightly more forgiving in some capacity, but
I still think Ahsoka, if it came out in animation, we would have liked it more than it is in live
we've
action.
talked about that because he probably would have been more forgiving still. But no, Andor, I mean, not to jump to a different topic entirely, but Andor did raise the bar so much so that you look at all these other shows and like, why can't it be a little bit better? Look what they did there. Why is this show like this when Andor was like that? I don't know. Interesting question, but I think that is going to be all we got for you this time. So now it's your turn to take to the comments below and answer this question. Do you feel like Ahsoka is inconsistent or not? Whatever the case may be, leave those comments below. Let's talk some Star Wars, and until next time, thanks for watching.